Welcome to the Story Lab. I hope you enjoy this story. Let's begin. I stood in our pristine kitchen, admiring the gleaming granite countertops and state-of-the-art appliances. Everything in our lives seemed perfect, from our beautiful suburban home in Denver to our successful careers and two adorable children. But lately, something felt off. Paul, have you seen my phone? Elisha's voice carried from upstairs, a hint of irritation in her tone. Check your nightstand, I called back, suppressing a sigh. These little moments of forgetfulness and frustration had been happening more frequently lately. Footsteps thundered down the stairs as our kids, Sophia and Liam, raced into the kitchen. Dad, can we have pancakes? Sophia asked, her eyes wide with hope. I ruffled her hair. Sure thing, kiddo. Who wants to be my sous chef? Me, Liam shouted, bouncing on his toes. As I gathered ingredients, Alicia appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. She looked impeccable in her crisp blazer and pencil skirt, every inch the successful marketing executive. But there was a tightness around her eyes that hadn't been there a few months ago. I've got a big presentation today, she announced, barely glancing at the pancake-making operation. I might be home late. I nodded, trying to keep my voice light. No problem. Good luck with the presentation. We'll save you some dinner. Elisha's gaze flickered to me, then away. Thanks. I should go. Have a good day, everyone. The kids chirped their goodbyes, but Alicia was already heading for the door. No kiss goodbye, no lingering glance. I pushed away the nagging worry and focused on the kids. All right, team. Let's make these the best pancakes ever. As we mixed batter and flipped flapjacks, I found myself thinking about how Alicia and I had gotten here. We'd met in college, two ambitious kids with big dreams. I'd fallen for her drive, her quick wit, her infectious laugh. Now, at 35, we had everything we'd ever wanted. So why did it feel like something was slipping away? Dad, you're burning it. Liam's voice snapped me back to reality. I quickly flipped the smoking pancake, forcing a laugh. Oops, that one's for the compost bin. Good catch, buddy. After breakfast and the school drop-off, I headed to my architecture firm. As I sketched designs for a new eco-friendly office building, my mind kept drifting to Alicia. When had she last laughed that full-bodied laugh I loved? When had we last had a real conversation that wasn't about schedules or the kids? My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Kyle. Drinks tonight? Need to vent about this case I'm working on. I typed back, can't tonight. Elisha's working late. Maybe this weekend? Kyle's response was quick. No problem. Everything okay with you too? I hesitated, then replied, yeah, just busy. Talk soon. The rest of the day passed in a blur of client meetings and design revisions. As I drove home, I resolved to talk to Alicia to figure out what was going on. Maybe we just needed a date night, a chance to reconnect. But when I got home, the house was quiet. A note on the fridge read, got held up at work. Don't wait up. I microwaved some leftovers and helped the kids with homework. As I tucked them into bed, Sophia asked, when's Mom coming home? She's working late, sweetie. You'll see her in the morning. Liam frowned. She's always working late now. I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Your mom has a very important job, but she loves you both very much. After the kids were asleep, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the back porch. The stars were bright in the clear Colorado sky, but I couldn't shake the feeling that storm clouds were gathering on the horizon of our perfect life. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, I was waking up to the sound of the back door opening. Alicia stepped onto the porch, startling when she saw me. Paul, what are you doing out here? I blinked, disoriented. I guess I fell asleep. What time is it? Almost midnight. She wouldn't quite meet my eyes. You should come to bed. It's chilly out here. As we got ready for bed, I tried to engage her in conversation. How was your presentation? Fine, she said, her voice clipped. We landed the account. That's great, I said, with forced enthusiasm. We should celebrate this weekend. Maybe get a sitter. Go out to that new restaurant downtown? Alicia paused in the middle of removing her makeup. Oh, this weekend's not great. I've got a lot of work to catch up on. I felt a flicker of frustration. Alicia, When was the last time we did something just the two of us? She sighed, turning to face me. Paul, I'm tired. Can we not do this right now? I wanted to push, to demand answers, but the weariness in her eyes stopped me. Okay, another time. As we lay in bed, not touching, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how we drifted so far apart, and more importantly, how we could find our way back to each other. Weeks passed, and the distance between Alicia and me only seemed to grow. I tried to bridge the gap. Surprise lunches at her office, little gifts left on her pillow, but nothing seemed to penetrate the wall she built around herself. One evening, I decided to surprise her by picking her up from work. As I approached her office building, I saw her emerge, laughing and chatting with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed, with an easy charm that was evident even from a distance. I hung back, watching as they walked to a nearby coffee shop. Through the window, I could see them sitting close, heads bent together in conversation. Alicia's face was animated in a way I hadn't seen in months. My stomach churned with a mixture of jealousy and hurt. Who was this guy? And why was Alicia so at ease with him when she'd been so distant with me? I debated confronting them but decided against it. Instead, I sent Alicia a text. Working late again? Should I keep dinner warm? A few minutes later, she replied, Sorry, got caught up in a meeting. Don't wait up. I drove home, my mind racing. Was I overreacting? It could have been an innocent work meeting, but something in my gut told me there was more to it. The next morning, as Alicia rushed to get ready for work, I casually asked, How was your meeting last night? She froze for a split second before answering. Oh, it was fine. Just going over strategy for a new campaign. Anyone I know? I pressed. Alicia's eyes flickered to mine, then away. Just a new colleague, Alex Morgan. He's got some great ideas for the Henderson account. I nodded, trying to keep my voice neutral. Sounds interesting. Maybe we could all grab dinner sometime? I'd love to hear more about it. Maybe, Alicia said vaguely. We'll see. I've got to run. Have a good day. As she hurried out the door, I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach. Something was definitely not right. Over the next few weeks, I noticed subtle changes in Alicia's behavior. She started paying more attention to her appearance, wearing new clothes and spending extra time on her hair and makeup. Her phone became an extension of her hand, and she always angled the screen away from me when texting. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, I decided to broach the subject. Alicia, can we talk? I asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. She tensed visibly. About what? About us. About what's been going on lately. You've been different, distant. Is everything okay? Alicia sighed, running a hand through her hair. Paul, I'm just stressed with work. This new campaign is taking up a lot of my time and energy. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Is that all it is? Because sometimes it feels like you're pulling away from me, from our family. Her eyes flashed with something. Guilt? Anger? Before she schooled her features into a neutral expression. You're imagining things. I'm just busy. It'll calm down soon. I wanted to believe her, but the knot in my stomach only tightened. Okay, but you know you can talk to me about anything, right? If something's bothering you, or if you're unhappy. I'm fine, Paul, she snapped, her tone sharper than I'd expected. Can we just go to sleep? I have an early meeting tomorrow. I lay awake long after Alicia's breathing had evened out into sleep. The woman beside me felt like a stranger, and I had no idea how to reach her. The next day, I confided in Kyle over lunch. I don't know, man, I said, pushing my food around my plate. It's like she's a completely different person. And there's this new guy at work? Kyle's eyebrows shot up. You think she's cheating? I shook my head vehemently. No, I don't know. I don't want to believe that. But something's not right. Kyle leaned back, his expression serious. Look, Paul, I've seen this before in my line of work. I'm not saying she's definitely cheating, but keep your eyes open. And maybe consider talking to a lawyer, just in case. A lawyer? The idea made me feel sick. It hasn't come to that. It can't have. Kyle held up his hands. I hope it doesn't, but it's better to be prepared, you know? As I drove back to the office, Kyle's words echoed in my head. Was I really considering the possibility that Alicia could be unfaithful? The thought was almost too painful to bear. That evening, I decided to make one last attempt to reconnect. I arranged for my parents to take the kids for the night and prepared Alicia's favorite meal. When she walked in, the surprise was evident on her face. "What's all this?" she asked, eyeing the candles and wine glasses. I smiled, trying to hide my nervousness. I thought we could use a night to ourselves, to talk, to reconnect. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the old Alicia in her eyes, warm, loving. But then her phone buzzed, and as she glanced at the screen, her expression clouded. "Paul, this is nice, but I really need to take care of something for work. Can we do this another night?" My heart sank. "Alicia, please. Just one night. Whatever it is, it can wait." She shook her head, already typing on her phone. "I'm sorry. I have to go." As she hurried out the door, leaving me alone with the cooling dinner and guttering candles, I felt something inside me break. Whatever was going on with Alicia, whatever she was hiding, I knew our marriage would never be the same. The weeks that followed were a blur of tension and unspoken accusations. Alicia and I moved around each other like wary strangers, our conversations limited to logistics about the kids and household chores. The warmth and intimacy that had once defined our relationship had evaporated, leaving behind a cold, empty shell. One evening, as I was helping Sophia with her homework, she looked up at me with worry in her young eyes. "Dad, why are you and Mom always fighting?" I felt a pang in my chest. Had our issues become so obvious that even the kids were noticing? I forced a smile. "We're not fighting, sweetie. Sometimes grown-ups just have disagreements. But Mom and I both love you and Liam very much. That will never change." Sophia didn't look convinced, but she nodded and returned to her math problems. As I watched her, I couldn't help but wonder how our marital troubles were affecting the kids. They deserved better than this tense, unhappy household. Later that night, I overheard Alicia on the phone in her home office. Her voice was low, but I could hear the warmth in it, a warmth that had been absent from our interactions for months. "I know, I miss you too," she was saying, "but we have to be careful. Paul's getting suspicious." My blood ran cold. All my worst fears seemed to be confirmed in that moment. I wanted to burst into the room, to confront her, but I held back. I needed more evidence, more certainty, before I took any drastic steps. The next day, I called Kyle, my voice shaking as I recounted what I'd overheard. "Jesus, Paul," Kyle said, his tone a mixture of sympathy and concern. "I hate to say it, but it sounds like your suspicions might be right. What are you going to do?" I ran a hand through my hair, feeling lost. I don't know. Part of me wants to confront her, demand the truth. But another part, I'm scared, Kyle. Scared of what I might find out, scared of what it might mean for our family. Kyle was quiet for a moment. "Look, I know this is hard, but you need to protect yourself. And the kids. If Alicia is having an affair, you need to gather evidence. It could be important if things end up in court." The idea of divorce, of breaking up our family, made me feel physically ill. But I couldn't ignore the reality of the situation any longer. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What should I do?" Kyle outlined a plan, documenting Alicia's absences, unusual expenses, keeping track of her comings and goings. It felt wrong, like I was betraying her trust. But hadn't she already betrayed mine? Over the next few weeks, I became a reluctant detective in my own home. I noticed how Alicia always kept her phone close, how she'd step out of the room to take certain calls. I saw the way she'd light up when a particular text came through, only to quickly school her features into neutrality when she noticed me watching. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, Alicia announced, "I have to go out of town next week. Big client meeting in Chicago." I nodded, keeping my face neutral even as suspicion gnawed at me. "How long will you be gone?" "Just 2 nights," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "I'll be back Wednesday evening." I wanted to ask more questions, to demand details, but I held back. Instead, I simply said, "Okay, have a good trip." The night before her supposed business trip, I lay awake long after Alicia had fallen asleep. In the dim light of the moon filtering through our curtains, I studied her face. She looked peaceful, beautiful, the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. How had we ended up here? As dawn broke, I made a decision. I couldn't go on like this, living with suspicion and doubt. When Alicia returned from her trip, I would confront her. I would demand the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The morning of her departure, I watched as Alicia packed her suitcase, chattering about her upcoming meetings. It all seemed so normal, so believable. But the knot in my stomach told me otherwise. As she headed for the door, suitcase in hand, I caught her arm gently. "Alicia, wait." She turned, a question in her eyes. For a moment, I almost lost my nerve, but I pressed on. "When you get back, we need to talk. Really talk. About us, about what's been going on." "Okay." Alicia's face flickered with a mix of emotions: guilt, fear, resignation. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, Paul. When I get back." As I watched her car disappear down the street, I felt a strange mix of dread and relief. Whatever happened when she returned, things were going to change. Our perfect facade was about to crumble, and I had no idea what we'd find in the rubble. The day Alicia was supposed to return from her business trip to Chicago, I decided to leave work early. Something in my gut told me I needed to be home. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Alicia's car wasn't there. Odd, considering her flight was meant to land hours ago. I dialed her number, my fingers trembling slightly. It went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just wondering when you'll be home. Give me a call when you get this." Hours passed. No call, no text. By nightfall, my worry had morphed into a sickening suspicion. I called Kyle. "She's not home," I said without preamble. "And her phone's off." Kyle's voice was grim. "Paul, I hate to say this, but..." "I know." I cut him off. I think I need to find out for sure." "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath. "I'm going to track her phone." "Paul, that's..." I know, but I need to know the truth." After hanging up, I logged into our shared account and activated the phone tracking feature we'd set up for emergencies. My hands shook as I waited for it to load. When the location popped up, my heart sank. It wasn't our house, or her office, or anywhere in Chicago. It was a hotel in Denver. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and drove. The entire way, my mind raced with possibilities. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. But as I pulled into the hotel parking lot and saw Alicia's car, those hopes crumbled. I sat there for what felt like hours, debating what to do. Part of me wanted to storm in, to confront her. Another part wanted to drive away, to pretend I'd never discovered this. Finally, I got out of the car. At the front desk, I flashed my most charming smile. "Hi, I'm supposed to meet my wife, Alicia Winters. Could you tell me her room number?" The receptionist hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't give out that information." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "Please, we have 2 kids at home, and there's been an emergency. I really need to reach her." Whether it was the mention of kids or the desperation in my voice, something worked. She gave me the room number. As I rode the elevator, my heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. When I reached the door, I paused, my hand hovering over the handle. Did I really want to know what was on the other side? Before I could decide, the door opened, and there stood Alex Morgan. For a moment, we just stared at each other, shock mirrored on both our faces. Then, from inside the room, I heard Alicia's voice. "Alex? Who is it?" She appeared behind him, wrapped in a bathrobe. When she saw me, all the color drained from her face. "Paul," she whispered. "Oh God." Something inside me snapped. With a roar of rage, I lunged at Alex, my fist connecting with his jaw. He stumbled backward, crashing into a lamp. "Paul, stop." Alicia screamed, trying to get between us. But I was beyond reason. All the pain, all the betrayal of the past months came pouring out as I rained blows on Alex. "You son of a bitch," I yelled. How could you? How could you do this to us?" Alex, to his credit, didn't fight back. He just tried to shield himself, repeating, I'm sorry, over and over. Finally, Alicia managed to pull me off him. We stood there, all three of us panting and disheveled. How long? I demanded, my voice hoarse. How long has this been going on? Alicia's eyes filled with tears. Paul, how long? She flinched at my tone. 3 months, she whispered. The admission hit me like a physical blow. 3 months. While I'd been at home, taking care of our kids, trying to save our marriage, she'd been, I want a divorce, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Alicia's eyes widened. Paul, please, we can work this out. It was a mistake, I held up a hand, silencing her. No, we're done. I'll have my lawyer contact you. As I turned to leave, Alex spoke up. Paul, I'm truly sorry. I never meant. I whirled on him. If you ever come near my family again, I'll do worse than give you a black eye. Stay away from us. With that, I walked out, leaving behind the shattered remains of my marriage and the life I thought we'd built together. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and heart-wrenching conversations with our children. Sophia and Liam didn't fully understand what was happening, but they knew their world was changing irrevocably. On the day of our first court appearance, I arrived early, my stomach in knots. Kyle, who had insisted on representing me despite our friendship, met me outside. You ready for this? He asked, his usually jovial face serious. I nodded grimly, as I'll ever be. As we entered the courthouse, I saw Alicia and her lawyer huddled in conversation. When she noticed me, she straightened, her face a mask of composure, but I could see the toll the situation had taken on her. She looked tired, drawn. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, called the court to order. We're here today to discuss the dissolution of marriage between Paul and Alicia Winters, she began. I understand you're seeking joint custody of your minor children? Kyle stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client believes it's in the best interest of the children to maintain relationships with both parents. Alicia's lawyer, a sharp-looking man in an expensive suit, chimed in. We're in agreement on that point, Your Honor. The judge nodded. Very well. Let's discuss the specifics of the custody arrangement. What followed was an hour of back and forth about schedules, holidays, and decision-making rights. Through it all, I kept stealing glances at Alicia. How had we ended up here, haggling over time with our own children? As the judge made her ruling, joint custody, with the kids alternating weeks between us, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. At least I wouldn't lose my children entirely. After the hearing, as we were leaving the courthouse, Alicia approached me. Paul, she said softly, can we talk for a moment? I hesitated, then nodded. Kyle gave me a concerned look, but I waved him off. Alicia and I moved to a quiet corner of the lobby. I just wanted to say, she began, her voice trembling slightly, that I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you or the kids. I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time since that night at the hotel, despite everything, part of me still loved her. But that part was overshadowed by the pain and betrayal. I wish I could believe that, I said quietly. But you made your choices, Alicia. Now we both have to live with the consequences. She nodded, blinking back tears. I know. I hope someday you can forgive me. As I watched her walk away, I wondered if forgiveness was even possible. Over the next few months, Alicia and I settled into an uneasy co-parenting routine. The kids bounced between our homes, adjusting as best they could to their new reality. One day, as I was dropping Sophia and Liam off at Alicia's new apartment, I noticed a man I didn't recognize leaving the building. He was tall, well-dressed, with an air of confidence that immediately put me on edge. Who was that? I asked Alicia as the kids ran inside. She hesitated for a moment before answering. That's Blake. Blake Carter. I've been seeing him. I felt a twinge of something jealousy, hurt, but pushed it aside. I see. Well, I hope he's good to the kids. Alicia nodded. He is. They like him. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the image of this Blake character playing happy families with my children, but I reminded myself that Alicia had a right to move on. We both did. Little did I know, This was just the beginning of a new chapter in our increasingly complicated story. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. The kids seemed to be adjusting well, though I often caught glimpses of sadness in their eyes that broke my heart. I threw myself into work and tried to focus on being the best dad I could be. One sunny Saturday afternoon, I pulled up to Elisha's apartment to pick up Sophia and Liam for our week together. As I approached the building, a familiar figure emerged from the front door. My blood ran cold. It was Alex Morgan. He saw me and froze, his eyes widening in panic. Before I could react, he hurried to his car and sped away. Stunned, I made my way up to Elisha's apartment. When she opened the door, one look at my face told her something was wrong. "Paul? What's going on?" she asked, ushering me inside. The kids were in the living room, engrossed in a video game. I lowered my voice. "I just saw Alex leaving." "What the hell, Alicia?" She paled, glancing nervously at the kids. "Let's talk in the kitchen." Once we were alone, I turned to her, barely containing my anger. "I thought you were done with him. What about Blake?" Elisha's shoulders slumped. "It's complicated." "Uncomplicated for me," I growled. She took a deep breath. "I am seeing Blake. He's good to me, good to the kids. But Alex and we never really ended things." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "So you're cheating on your new boyfriend with the guy you cheated on me with?" "Jesus, Alicia. It's not like that," she protested weakly. "Then what is it like?" I demanded. Elisha's eyes darted around the room, not meeting mine. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm marrying Blake." For a moment, I couldn't process what she'd said. "You're what?" "We're getting married," she repeated, louder this time. "Next month." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "Does he know about Alex?" She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "Why?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Why are you doing this?" Elisha's next words hit me like a sledgehammer. He's very successful, wealthy. He can provide for me, for the kids, in a way that I couldn't," I finished for her, disgust rising in my throat. She had the decency to look ashamed. "Paul, No," I cut her off. "I don't want to hear it. You're using this man for his money while continuing an affair with Alex? Have you lost your mind?" "You don't understand," she pleaded. "I'm doing this for our children. They deserve a mother who isn't a liar and a cheat," I snapped. "How do you think they'll feel when they find out about this?" "Because they will, Alicia. The truth always comes out." She crumpled then, sinking into a chair at the kitchen table. "What am I supposed to do?" I looked at her, this woman I had once loved more than anything in the world, and felt nothing but pity and revulsion. "You're going to tell Blake the truth," I said firmly, "and you're going to end things with Alex. For good this time." Elisha's head snapped up. "I can't do that. Blake will leave me, and then what? How will I support the kids?" "That's not my problem," I said coldly. "But I'll tell you what is my problem. The safety and well-being of our children. And right now, I don't think they're safe in this environment." Her eyes widened in fear. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that unless you come clean and end this charade, I'm going to fight for full custody." "You can't do that," she whispered. "Watch me," I retorted. "I'm giving you a chance here, Alicia. One chance to do the right thing. For once." She was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll tell Blake. After the wedding." I shook my head. "No, you'll tell him now. Today. And you'll end things with Alex. I want proof that you've done both." "And if I do?" she asked, her voice small. "Then we stick to the current custody arrangement," I said. "But I'm warning you, Alicia. One more lie, one more betrayal, and I'll take the kids. I mean it." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand." As I gathered Sophia and Liam for our week together, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Alicia had shown her true colors, and I knew I had to be prepared for whatever came next. In the car, Liam's small voice piped up from the back seat. "Dad, why were you and Mom fighting?" I met his eyes in the rearview mirror, seeing the worry there. "We weren't fighting, buddy. We were just having a grown-up discussion." About what? Sophia chimed in. I sighed, trying to find the right words. About making sure that both of you are happy and safe. That's the most important thing to your mom and me. As we drove home, I made a silent vow. No matter what it took, I would protect my children from the mess their mother had created, even if it meant taking drastic measures. Scene 1. Gathering more evidence. The weeks following my confrontation with Alicia were tense. I'd given her an ultimatum, but deep down, I doubted she'd follow through. Call it intuition or just plain cynicism. But I knew I needed to protect myself and my children. One evening, as I sat in my new apartment, staring at divorce papers, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and dialed a number Kyle had given me, just in case. Hawkeye Investigations, this is Mike speaking. I took a deep breath. Hi, Mike. My name is Paul Winters. I need your help. What can I do for you, Mr. Winters? I need evidence. My ex-wife. She's engaged to one man but having an affair with another. I need proof. Mike's voice was all business. I see. And what do you plan to do with this evidence? Protect my kids, I said firmly. I want full custody. All right, Mr. Winters. Let's set up a meeting and discuss the details. The next day, I met Mike at a quiet coffee shop. He was a gruff, no-nonsense type, which I appreciated. So, tell me about your ex, he said, pulling out a notepad. I laid it all out: Alicia's affair with Alex, her engagement to Blake, her admission that she was marrying for money. Mike whistled low. That's quite a situation. What exactly are you looking for? Anything that proves she's still seeing Alex while engaged to Blake. Photos, messages, recordings, whatever you can get legally. He nodded. I can do that. But I gotta warn you, this kind of evidence gathering isn't cheap. I thought of my children, of the unstable environment they were in. I don't care about the cost. Just get me what I need. Over the next few weeks, Mike kept me updated on his progress. I tried to go about my life normally, focusing on work and the kids, but the anticipation was killing me. Finally, Mike called. I've got something. Can you meet? We met at the same coffee shop. Mike slid a manila envelope across the table. Take a look, he said. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were photos of Alicia and Alex kissing outside her apartment, entering a hotel together. There were screenshots of text messages, filled with declarations of love and plans to meet. There's more, Mike said, handing me a USB drive. Voice recordings. Your ex and this Alex guy discussing their relationship, talking about how they're going to keep it hidden from Blake. I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. It's exactly what I needed. Thank you. Mike's expression softened slightly. Look, I've seen a lot of these cases. It never gets easier. But you're doing the right thing for your kids. As I left the coffee shop, evidence in hand, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Now, I had what I needed to protect my children. But the hardest part was yet to come. That night, I called Kyle. I've got the evidence, I told him. Now what? Kyle's voice was grim. Now, we prepare for war. But Paul, are you sure you want to do this? Once you use this evidence, there's no going back. I thought of Sophia and Liam, of the lies and instability surrounding them. I'm sure. Whatever it takes to keep my kids safe. All right, Kyle said. Let's meet tomorrow and go over our strategy. As I hung up, I noticed a text from Alicia. Kids are excited for the wedding next month. Hope you can be happy for us. I stared at the message, anger and determination coursing through me. Little did she know, there wasn't going to be a wedding. Not if I had anything to say about it. The day of Alicia and Blake's wedding dawned bright and clear. As I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my tie, I caught sight of the determined look in my eyes. Today was the day everything would change. My phone buzzed with a text from Kyle. Are you sure about this? I typed back quickly. Absolutely. See you there. The drive to the church was surreal. I passed happy couples and families, going about their Saturday routines, oblivious to the drama about to unfold. As I pulled into the church parking lot, I saw Kyle waiting for me. You ready for this? He asked as I approached. I nodded, patting my pocket where my phone held all the incriminating evidence. As ready as I'll ever be. We entered the church, ignoring the curious and somewhat hostile glances from the other guests. I recognized some of Elisha's family members, including her mother, Linda, who shot me a particularly venomous look. As we took seats near the back, I heard whispers around us. What's he doing here? Can you believe he showed up? Someone should ask him to leave. Kyle leaned in close. Ignore them. Just stick to the plan. The wedding march began to play, and all heads turned to watch Elisha walk down the aisle. She looked beautiful, I had to admit, but all I could think about was the web of lies she had woven. As she reached the altar, where Blake stood beaming, the priest began the ceremony. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. I tensed, waiting for the right moment. Kyle placed a steadying hand on my arm. Finally, the priest said the words I'd been waiting for. If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot lawfully be joined together in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. I stood up, my heart pounding. I have something to say. A collective gasp went through the church. Elisha whirled around, her face a mask of shock and anger. Paul, what are you doing? She hissed as I walked to the front of the church, pulling out my phone. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's something everyone here needs to know. Blake looked confused. What's going on? I turned to face the congregation. Elisha isn't who you all think she is. She's been lying to everyone, including you, Blake. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elisha's face had gone pale. Paul, stop this right now, she pleaded. But I was beyond stopping. I held up my phone, displaying the photos of Elisha and Alex together. Elisha has been having an affair with her coworker, Alex Morgan. It's been going on for months, even after she got engaged to Blake. The church erupted in shocked exclamations. Blake staggered back as if he'd been physically struck. That's not true, he stammered. Elisha, tell them it's not true. But Elisha's silence was damning. Tears streamed down her face as she looked from Blake to me to the stunned congregation. I continued, my voice carrying over the commotion. I have proof photos, messages, even recordings of Elisha and Alex planning to continue their affair after the wedding. Linda Thompson, Elisha's mother, stood up. How dare you? This is nothing but a jealous ex trying to ruin my daughter's happiness. I turned to her, my voice steady. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson, but your daughter has been lying to all of us. I'm only here because I care about the well-being of my children. They deserve better than to be caught in the middle of all these lies. Blake had moved away from Elisha, his face a mix of hurt and anger. Is it true? He demanded. Have you been cheating on me? Elisha's silence was all the confirmation he needed. With a look of disgust, he stormed out of the church. The priest, looking thoroughly overwhelmed, tried to regain control of the situation. Perhaps we should all take a moment to, but his words were drowned out by the chaos that had erupted. Guests were shouting, some demanding explanations, others defending Elisha. I in the midst of it all. I locked eyes with Elisha. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I had once loved, vulnerable, scared. But then her expression hardened. You've ruined everything, she spat. I hope you're happy. I shook my head. This isn't about happiness, Elisha. It's about truth. And our children. As I turned to leave, Kyle at my side, I heard Elisha's anguished cry behind me. But I didn't look back. I had done what I came to do. Now, it was time to face the aftermath. The days following the wedding debacle were a whirlwind. My phone rang constantly, friends, family, even reporters seeking comments on the wedding crasher ex-husband story. I ignored most of the calls, focusing instead on what mattered most. My children. Sophia and Liam were staying with me, shielded as much as possible from the media circus. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, Sophia looked up at me with serious eyes. Dad, why is everyone talking about you and Mom? I put down my fork, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes, grown-ups make mistakes. Big mistakes that affect a lot of people. Your mom made some choices that weren't good for our family, and I had to make sure everyone knew the truth. Liam piped up, Is that why Mom's been crying all the time? My heart clenched. Despite everything, I hated the thought of Elisha in pain. Your mom is going through a tough time right now, but that's not something you need to worry about, okay? Our job is to make sure you two are happy and safe. The kids nodded, seemingly satisfied for now. But I knew there would be more questions, more difficult conversations in the future. A few days later, I received a call from Kyle. "Paul, we need to talk. Can you come to my office?" When I arrived, Kyle wasn't alone. A stern-looking woman in a crisp suit stood as I entered. "Paul, this is Judge Martinez," Kyle introduced. "She's been assigned to your case." I shook her hand, trying to quell my nerves. "It's nice to meet you, Your Honor." Judge Martinez got straight to the point. "Mr. Winters, I've reviewed the evidence you presented at the wedding incident. While I don't condone your methods, I cannot ignore the facts. I'm granting you temporary full custody of your children, pending a full hearing." Relief washed over me. "Thank you, Your Honor." She held up a hand. "Don't thank me yet. This situation is far from resolved. I expect both you and Ms. Winters to behave in a manner that prioritizes your children's well-being. Is that clear?" I nodded solemnly. "Crystal clear, Your Honor." After she left, Kyle turned to me with a grin. "Well, that's a win." But I couldn't fully celebrate. "What about Alicia? Has anyone heard from her?" Kyle's expression sobered. "Last I heard, she's staying with her mother. Blake called off the engagement, obviously. And Alex, well, his wife found out about the affair. He's out of the picture too." I sat heavily in a chair, the weight of it all hitting me. "I never wanted it to come to this, Kyle. I just wanted to protect my kids." He placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "I know, Paul. You did what you had to do. Now, we focus on moving forward." Over the next few weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. The media frenzy died down, and I threw myself into creating a stable, loving home for Sophia and Liam. We had game nights, movie marathons, and long talks about their feelings. Slowly but surely, I saw them starting to heal. One sunny Saturday, as we were playing in the park, I spotted a familiar figure approaching. It was Alicia, looking pale and drawn. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I nodded, sending the kids to play on the nearby swings where I could keep an eye on them. Alicia sat beside me on the bench, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, "about my choices, about our family. I'm sorry, Paul, for everything." I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "I've started therapy," she went on. "I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. It doesn't excuse anything, I know that, but I want to be better. For the kids, for myself." I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, a hint of hope. "I'm glad you're getting help, Alicia. The kids need you to be healthy and stable." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I know I have no right to ask this, but do you think, someday, you might be able to forgive me?" I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. I saw remorse, pain, but also a glimmer of the woman I'd once loved. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Right now, I'm focused on the kids, on healing. But maybe someday." A small, sad smile crossed her face. "I understand. Thank you for listening, Paul." As she walked away, I watched Sophia and Liam on the swings, their laughter carrying across the park. We had a long road ahead of us, full of challenges and difficult conversations. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. I may not have emerged from this ordeal unscathed, but I had my children, my integrity, and a chance at a fresh start. As I joined Sophia and Liam on the playground, their smiles warming my heart, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.